good like that.
There we go. Everybody lay on their stomachs.
Yeah, I was just trying to get it.
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the September 5th, 2023 Lower Frederick Board of Supervisors General Meeting. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody who is on the roll call is present. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes, unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. And we have a couple of executive sessions to announce. We had one immediately prior to our conditional use hearing on August 29th on litigation, and we had one just prior to this meeting about a personnel issue. And now we're going to get to our presentation. We're very happy to present an award to Chief Paul Maxey, who is going to be, I don't even want to say, who's going to be leaving us soon. Do we have?
So I guess I will get to, probably easiest is just read the resolution.
Do we have the citation?
I don't know how we want to do the presentation.
Well, we can come up here before the camera and...
Maybe you hold the citation.
Yeah. There we go.
All right, so I'll try to get through this as fast as I can.
Step back a little bit
more,
more,
because your heads are cut off.
There you go. A little bit better.
There you go, that's
There we
better.
go. Okay, so the certificate of recognition presented to Paul Maxey. Do you have the, shall I read the resolution?
I was going to read either you can do
Let
it
me
or
read this and you can read the resolution. Lower Frederick Township and the Board of Supervisors would like to recognize the contributions, dedication, and faithful service of Paul E. Maxey to this township and to its residents over the past 16 years. Chief Maxey's leadership within the Lower Frederick Police Department has shaped the department into the outstanding organization it is today. With great appreciation, we wish you the best. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good. All right. And I just want to say, when I moved to Lower Frederick, our police force was small, and it was even smaller before that, and you have really built this into the force it is today. And that's just, I'm going to credit you for that. So, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Marl, all 5 of you should be up there.
Yep. There you go.
Thanks so much. All the best for your next adventure. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Well,
Appreciate it very
great
much.
job
Thank
the
you.
whole time.
Thank you so much.
So the resolution that the board will be adopting, recognizing Chief Paul Maxey on this occasion reads as follows. Whereas Lower Frederick Township is a second-class township in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and whereas Chief Paul E. Maxey was appointed as Lower Frederick Police Chief on January 7, 2008, and whereas Chief Paul E. Maxey will be officially retired on March 6, 2024, and whereas Chief Maxey graduated from the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy of the University of Virginia School of Continuing and Professional Studies while serving Lower Frederick Township, and whereas during his tenure as Lower Frederick Police Chief, he was trusted and respected by the board and residents of Lower Frederick to advise and assist whenever needed, and whereas Township recognizes the dedication and commitment of Chief Maxey leading the Lower Frederick Police Department into the outstanding organization it is today, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors recognize the contributions, the dedication, and faithful service of Paul E. Maxey to this township and to its residents over the past 16 years. And be it further resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Lower Frederick be it further resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Lower Frederick acknowledges and applauds Chief Paul E. Maxey's service at this public meeting held on September 5th, 2023 by presenting him this resolution and citation with a grateful appreciation of the Board of Supervisors and the residents of Lower Frederick Township. This would be Resolution 2023 R-18.
So do we need to have a, do we need to vote on that? Okay. So I will make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second, adopting resolution number 2023 R dash, sorry, what was the number again? 18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And he will get a copy of that after we sign it.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we wish you the best in this next chapter of your life. All right. Now on to more mundane topics. Administrative actions. We have 4 sets of minutes to adopt: June 27, July 11, July 25, and August 1st. You may notice that May 23rd and June 6th have not yet made the list. We will get to those very soon, hopefully at our next meeting. If anyone wants to know what happened at those meetings, it's on our YouTube channel. So apologies that we're not completely up to date, but we're very, very close. Would the board like to adopt these all in a group or individually?
It's fine by me.
Any group's fine.
Are there any more additions or comments on any of these?
No, they're good.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt these 4 sets of minutes?
Chuck?
He's the guy with the mic.
Oh.
I'll make that motion.
Aye.
Okay, all right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Orff made the second to adopt these 4 sets of minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Okay, so this is the Treasurer's report through August 31st, 2023. Finished the month with the EIT at $757,417, which is $3,277 over budget. Real estate transfers still running strong at $150,032, which is $50,403 over budget. And our current delinquent real estate tax is at $740,481, which is $5,094 over budget. Overall revenue, we're at $1.835 million, which is $211,309 over budget, up 1.6% from last year. Total expenses year-to-date would be $1.563 million, which is 73,394 over budget, up 20.7% from last year. Net income as of August 31st, 271,976. The township's budgeted net income was 134,061. However, the performance is surpassing our budget by 102.9%. Revenue continues to surpass or be on budget for most line items. 88.4% of the overall revenue budget has been collected with 4 months remaining in the year. Expenses for most items are on or below budget. Health insurance, engineering, wages, I think is a payroll cycle timing, vehicle repairs, zoning, legal, and paving would be putting expenses over budget. We've only spent 64.2% of our overall expense budget. Our current total due from the sewer capital for 2022 and 2023, this is through June, is 97,555. This is entered quarterly, and that, I think I said last month, that'll be done, but that transfer will be done in September. So we'll be up to date with just the current year due to the general fund from the sewer fund. Overall, the township's performance is down 46.8% from 2022. This is primarily because of wages, because we have more employees, health insurance, and the paving that came out of the general fund as the major contributors. Sewer fund, rental use charge is 79,000 over budget. Revenue overall is 316,096 over budget, with 274,658 consisting of the FEMA insurance payments. The fund has already met budget overall for revenue at 100.2% with 4 months to go. Chemicals, utilities, insurance and bonding, pump station repairs, and sewer line extension projects are over budget. We've spent 70.8% of the overall expense budget. The net income is 312,032. The 2022 net income through August was at 241,755, so overall performance is up 29.1%. Liquid fuels is, as it's been reported most of the year now. Our net income is at 154,623, which is 308,000, not 809, but dollars over budget. As the board may recall, we did not do any paving out of liquid fuels this year. Open Space Fund, no payments have been made out of open space other than for EIT commission. This is a fund that was not budgeted. The net income is currently 75,718. The fund also received a private donation in the month of August of $300. Total available dollars with current allocation is 157,534. The ARPA COVID relief fund, the former road sewer extension project paving bill was paid out of ARPA. COVID relief fund, this fund was also not budgeted. Currently, the net income is at a negative 105,384. As the board may recall, the only income we get for this is interest. The total available dollars with current allocation, which would be the sidewalk allocation, would be $282,202. That is the treasurer's report.
Any questions from the board? No. Okay. That brings us to payment of bills.
So before you start, Marla,
Okay.
because, so we had to split out one of the general fund bills for Terry to abstain since it was a direct payment to Saxon Funds.
Okay.
So you may want to go off the bills sheet that you have, because it was 2 sheets this month, and not the agenda. Because I have the full amount for the general fund on the agenda, but it's split between
So the 192 number?
it's the 192 would be the one that they're, Terry to.
Okay, so it's one, so we'll have 2 votes, and 192, 168, 11, and then the other one is 6,457 and 60. Is that
So if you want
correct?
to take the general fund, the ARPA relief, the sewer fund, and the sewer capital that Terry can vote on, and then we'll do the second one.
Okay. All right.
Place that in a better spot, so it's at the end.
Okay, so we have payment of bills in the general fund of $192,168 and 11 cents, in the sewer fund of $151,984 and 63 cents, in the sewer capital fund $879,777.15, and in ARPA COVID relief fund $112,106 $1,048.75. Any questions on any of those?
Should,
Sewer fund.
just curious, with respect to the S.J. Thomas, should that be separated out along with the direct payment? Because doesn't that, most of those funds go
I
to,
didn't hear you.
oh, sorry. Should the S.J. Thomas, the ARPA COVID relief fund be separated out as well? Because doesn't that money pass through to the Saxon Son?
That's a direct payment to S.J. Thomas, however that gets divided is not, that's
Okay.
S.J. Thomas money.
If Mr. Sachs wishes it to be divided out, he can ask.
Okay, just checking.
If there are no other questions from the board, do I have a motion to pay those bills as stated?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second.
All right, so we have Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Yiser made the second to pay the bills in the funds as stated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'll abstain from it if it makes everybody happy. Yes, Jay Thomas.
All right, any opposed? All right, so that passes with a vote of 4-0 with Supervisor Sachs abstaining. And then the second item, also out of the general fund, for $6,457.60, and that was to Saxon Sons. Supervisor Sachs is abstaining from that vote. Do I have a motion to make that payment?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, and I will second. So again, we have Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Hexer made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes again unanimously, 4-0 with Supervisor Sachs abstaining. All right. That brings us to professional and staff reports, and do you want to make the police announcement now, or when you get to the?
Yeah, I guess we could do that now. We'll have to vote to add this to the agenda.
No, we're not voting on it, just to make the statement.
Is that okay to make the statement then? Okay. So the board would like me to make the statement that effective September 22nd, 2023, Sergeant Brian Cass will be named the officer in charge for the Lower Frederick Police Department.
Thank you. So we'll have something more formal, probably at our next meeting. But after the Chief Maxey is no longer physically here, Sergeant Cass will be the officer in charge of the police force. All right, engineers report.
Thank you. The first item on my report is on the sewer extension, and that appears later on the agenda, so I'll jump over that. Resurfacing of Riverside Avenue, the milling work began today for the milling and paving of Riverside Avenue. In the Goshen-Hoppen watershed sewage planning, we have now received reviews from the Township and County Planning Commissions and the County Health Department. So we're incorporating their comments so we can publish a complete study. Once the study is published, the notice of the 30-day comment period will be advertised. At that time, a printed copy will be made available at the Township Building, and we will review with staff the feasibility of making an electronic copy also available from the Township. Projects currently in design include the Floyd Park Bank stabilization. I'm pleased to share that just today we received a letter noting MCCD approval. So the next step is submission of general permit notification to Pennsylvania DEP. The Zieglerville Road drainage, at this point we need to coordinate effort with the solicitor's office for easement acquisition before we can continue forward. Copel Park enhancements, we're preparing a phase plan and cost estimates for the park board to use to pursue grant funding. The flood barriers for the wastewater treatment plant are in design. The Springmount Road sidewalk soils testing for infiltration capacity was completed in August. An additional survey encompassing the area where stormwater management is anticipated was completed last week. The next step is stormwater design, followed by communication with the fire company regarding any proposed stormwater management facilities that might be on their lands. The Prestige development, also known as the Shahaki Tract or Farmview Estates, is still awaiting the approval of their NPDES permit from the Conservation District, and we must review the final stormwater management calculations. At Melbourne Hill, the stockpiling of material began last week, consistent with the agreement that was signed with the township. Their final plans are currently under review, and sewage planning documents for that project are expected to be presented to the board for approval concurrent with the Gosh and Hoppen special studies, so that they might be submitted together to DEP. At Loctite, site work is still underway. And at Arcadia Station, the developer is still working through his punch list of items to close the development. The traffic engineer has provided us a memorandum late last week that details his recommendations to either add pavement markings and additional signage to maintain this as a raised crosswalk for traffic calming, or to mill the walkway and pave it with a steeper cross slope that's more consistent with the original road grade. So we have two options there to consider for the crosswalk at Arcadia Station to get that resolved. At 118 Colonial Drive, the lot grading that was done for that single-family home was not entirely consistent with the approved grading and stormwater plan. A resulting puddle along and on Colonial Drive is unacceptable. The builder's engineer has been tasked with obtaining as-built data and developing a proposed solution at 118 Colonial Drive. The home at 3rd Avenue by Ratelli, the work continues on that home. 36 Smith Road, corrected plans and report were resubmitted in recent days. I believe we received those late Thursday afternoon, so we'll get those reviewed shortly. And then remaining on my list is 46 Pratt's Road, which was reviewed and approved in October of 2022. We're waiting for him to sign the O&M agreement, I guess, it's rolling. 1467 Gravel Pike, or Lackmar, was reviewed and accepted in April of 2023. That plan needs to be signed and the developer's agreement executed. And the Sandbrook subdivision, we're still awaiting submission from the applicant's engineer to address the driveway on lot 2. Those are all the items in my engineer's report, except for anything that appears later on the agenda. I'd be happy to address comments or suggestions from the board.
I have a question about the last item. I remember when we talked about this, it must have been close to 6 months ago. Do we have any time limit on this work being done? Because I recall one of the big issues was that water turning into ice. And it's, now summer is pretty much over, so when is this going to happen?
Happy to, I haven't had any word from the developer, but I'll be happy to review this in-house with the manager and the solicitor and talk about how we can move this forward.
Thank you.
Chuck Geiser question. With the Gosh and Hoppen watershed sewage planning, approximately when do you expect we'll see that? Is that like a 3-month thing, 1-month thing, a 6-month thing?
I almost have it ready to bring tonight.
Okay.
So within a week, we should have a completed study.
Okay.
That could then be advertised for public comment.
So then the other part of this, the Melbourne Hill, they have their stuff together already, right?
They have their sewage planning essentially together. It's under review right now by our office, their latest submission. They already did a public comment period, so they've addressed that requirement. But we have to submit their sewage planning concurrent with the Gosh and Hoppen planning. This is Andy Banks to review all at once. So they'll all come to you at the same time.
That's all I had, thank you.
Carol, just 2 quick questions. on both 46 Kratz and the 1467, they seem, again, it seems like a situation where these were discussed and things were supposed to happen quite a while ago.
That's why I keep putting them on my reports.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe when you're talking to the manager and the solicitor about pinging the one, and I forget which property, you can also maybe send a note to these guys. I mean, they shouldn't have an indefinite period of time to do this work, right?
I think you just did ping the manager and the solicitor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, go ahead, Warren.
Warren Jacobs, Fulmer Road. Carol, this pertains to Arcadia. Recently came to my attention that there's a few things that I'm hoping are on your checklist. I don't know what's on your punch list. But one is that a lot of the ENS control waste products, the plastic things that they use for grass and other things like that, it looks like they've just been discarded back in the open space area, in trees, and I'm hoping they're going to clean that up. Are they going to clean that up? Is that on your list?
Well, we have an extensive list, but if there's any of that orange fence remaining, if there's any silk fence remaining.
I'm not talking about the orange
that's
fence. I'm talking about that fine mesh that's plastic that gets put down when you seed.
Yeah, that's actually a mat that degrades over time, so that would be
Okay.
there stabilizing.
So it's a
things in that
degradable
time.
plastic, okay.
Right.
And there's also some of the ENS, the tubes pushed back into the woods. Maybe
Those stay in the woods. Those are actually infiltration berms that are approved by the Conservation District as part of their NPDES permits. So they actually have been topping those with topsoil and then putting grass seed on top of them and getting some of them to start to grow. But they do stay.
okay. Well, then the other thing is up at the cul-de-sac, where on the plan is denoted a place that's going to be the access for future development. There's some enormous boulders that have been put there just blocking that. And if that doesn't get corrected and the neighbor decides to have that developed, it would be better if this developer were responsible for fixing that rather than the neighbor having to sue the township over it. So maybe that should be on your list also.
I'm not sure if we can, Mr. Jacobs, but I'll confer with the solicitor further on that.
Thank you. And I've also noticed that a lot of the trees that have been planted twice, some of them are still, need to be replaced. So I'm assuming that's also on the punch list.
Both on the punch list, and if we do proceed to dedication, when we proceed to dedication, there's still another year guaranteeing that those trees survive, so.
As a
yes,
maintenance bond,
absolutely.
yeah.
Good, okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, England Road Road. Carol, as far as the Schwenk Road portion where we, negotiated with Schlau to go ahead and pave that, there's one area that Tommy has marked out with two little white lines. There's a lot more damage than that. So I don't know, here again, as Warren said, what's on your punch list, but I hope you're watching that whole portion there, and you have some kind of idea as to what you're gonna require them to do to fix the damage on the road that they've picked up.
We identified damage that was opposite the area they were using as a construction entrance on the far side of Schwenk Road from where they were going in and out that we required them to fix. I don't know what other spots you're talking about, but if you want to send a picture to the manager that you forward to me, I'd be happy to do that.
No, it's the whole right edge of the road, so you can see probably a half a lane from the right edge in. There's, all kinds of bumps and bruises, and you name it, from all their equipment going in and out. doing whatever they're doing, so I don't think a picture is necessary. You're here in the township. You know, either you or Jamie can go look at it and charge them for it and figure out what needs to be done to replace it. As far as the piece across the street, as I had brought up before, you know, Tommy only has two little white lines out there about a foot long. So in order for the township to have proper compaction, that area of that road needs to be dug out wide enough that whatever they're gonna be using to compact it is gonna be sufficient. You know, not just a little 1 foot by 3 foot patch. That's not doing us any good in the future.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Burns. We'll revisit the area. It's been some time since I took a close look at Schwenker and things have been on the look over there. So we'll revisit the area. Thank you.
One more thing, you mentioned about the two options that the developer's engineer talked about. So several months ago, whenever it was, you had mentioned, you told them last November, whatever you do, I don't want a bump in the road. Okay, so there was approved plans.
I don't recall saying that.
Well, we can go back and look at it, but you did. You said, I don't want a bump in the road, and then we had a bump in the road, and we've been living with the bump in the road. The great thing about it is, as a traffic calming thing, it's been wonderful, okay? I'm sure that the police and everybody else is still waiting for that cringing moment when some drunk driver comes down and does something stupid, and we're all having trouble down there. It was an approved plan. The plan was approved by you and the township to be done in a certain way. So I have no problem how it gets done. One of your comments, I believe, in the past was, you know, we're gonna be paving Zieglerville Road, so at whatever point, this bump is gonna be either eliminated, or maybe it's not now, if you're deciding that we should keep that there. So maybe that's something we need to talk about at a workshop session, so that the supervisors can weigh in on it, and maybe you can give some additional information. I don't think it's the engineer for the developers to decide which way they want to take care of it.
So I have a report from Benoni, who's the traffic engineer, who was written specifically for this by the developer. And what we talked about, what they've come up with in a memorandum is two options. If we like the traffic calming aspect of this and want to maintain the traffic calming aspect of this, he is proposing, as a professional traffic engineer, additional markings about a raised crosswalk, markings in the pavement to alert drivers as they approach the crosswalk, so that we can bring that configuration more into conformance with the traffic calming manual under the guidance of a professional traffic engineer. So if you like the traffic calming aspect of that and want to bring it more into compliance with the rules for traffic calming, that is one option that the township has right now. The other option is to return the cross slope to similar to what it was before and restore the crosswalk hatching on that steeper cross slope. And that's what we call, that's approved by what we call a TIF form, or technically infeasible to do the 2% cross slope. So these are two reasonable options that could be applied without going far up and down the road with adjustments. And I think either one is a reasonable solution. If the Township Board of Supervisors have an opinion to share, if you like one solution better than the other, that would be very helpful to know, and I appreciate it.
So Carol, related to that, what's the time frame that they're looking for us, or what time frame should we be working towards to get them an answer as to option one or option two? And then follow up to that question would be, in your capacity as our township engineer, which would be the what do you call that, most reasonable one for the township to look at for maintenance and plowing and all that kind of stuff? whichever order you want to answer the questions.
Appreciate it. So,
I have something to
as
say.
the
when-
timeline, the sooner the better, because I'd like to try to push them to get this done this season. And paving season technically ends October 31st, and we have had some lovely warm weather stretches after that. As to the, I don't want to say one's preferred over the other, but some of the pluses and minuses might be more appropriate. I think the traffic calming impact on Zieglerville Road has been a benefit. And the fact that you're slowing down traffic in an area where you want to encourage somebody to cross, I think is a bonus. So for those reasons, I like the idea of putting traffic calming signage and markings into place that come from a professional traffic engineer, from a reputable firm. On the other hand, to your other question, it'd probably be a lot easier for plowing if we returned to more the way it used to be. Public Works really didn't have any snow to plow last year, so they didn't get a chance to test themselves over that. So for the couple of days a year that you have snow, it would probably be easier if it went back to more of the original snow. So there are the pluses and minuses, and like I said, I think either one is an acceptable solution, and again, we welcome it.
So I was kind of working under the assumption that the reason you included it in the report tonight is just because it's been asked about and to let us know you got a response and that you were going to write some sort of memo that we would discuss perhaps at the work session meeting to get a better feel for everything.
Yes, rather than blindsiding you tonight, we
Yeah.
can absolutely talk about it in
Okay.
work session in 3 weeks. And I
yeah.
look forward to you the memorandum from the Penrose River.
Yeah, so just the two issues that I know, in addition to what Mr. Burns said, we'll call it inattentive driving, whatever you want to call it. The other issue that I remember talking about with Supervisor Sachs, he mentioned also that if perhaps the road conditions aren't good, like snow and ice, that somebody could hit that thing a lot faster than and lose control of their vehicle. I think that's what you had mentioned to me. And those seem to be reasonable things to really think about.
Yeah, and part of that is it really isn't well marked and signed right now for what it is. And so in the memo that I'll share with you, it'll show you pavement markings and concepts to, not just a sign, because people don't read signs, but pavement markings and concepts to make that more visible on apparent drivers. But thank you. Get that to you.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Township staff reports?
For the month of August, police-related service calls are 471. The police department issued 36 citations, and on the sheet, if you have it in front of you, we broke them down for the different citation violations. The police department continues to average more calls month to month compared to the same time period from the previous year. Officer Lauer completed the second phase of training. He is now recognized as a school resource officer through the National Association of School Resource Officers. I attended a human trafficking seminar hosted by the Pennsylvania State Police, and the police candidate interviews are scheduled for this coming Thursday, September 7th.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No.
I'm just curious, how do those numbers compare to last year? I know it's always higher in the summer, or even earlier in the year. I mean, are our numbers going up, or are they kind of staying
From
stable?
January, every month is higher than the previous year. From
Okay.
January is higher, February is higher compared to 2022.
All right, thank you. So everyone's keeping busy.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any questions from the public? Okay, fire company?
Good evening. For the month of August, fire company responded with 15 calls for service. 5 of them were in Lower Frederick Township. And just some updates. I stand corrected from last month again. Steak night was August 5th. That was a great success. Sold out just like previous years. And our cornhole tournament finally, which I misspoke last month, is October 21st. So Saturday, October 21st is our cornhole tournament. Sign up is available on our website for anyone interested.
Great, thank
That's
you.
all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions?
Let us know if you want to send it out using the township's email blast too, the announcement on the cornhole thing.
Yeah, do you want me, just, Jason, does that go to Becky, you?
You can go to Becky and you.
Okay,
Yeah, Becky's
I'll
got it.
send it all and we'll email to both of you then. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and people outside of Lower Frederick can sign up, so I don't know
Of course.
if Shanksville Borough is interested in what's going on here, but they're welcome to sign up too.
Yep, yeah, we've got people from Ambler that make their way up here
Okay.
every event, so.
Great, super.
Ringers.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anything from ambulance?
I did not.
Okay. Public Works?
So for the month of August, they did 5 sump pump sewer inspections. They helped set up and tear down for the Park and Recreation concert. They continued mowing township properties, performed road checks and cleanups after storms. They drained, cleaned, serviced, and did a startup for old basins / tanks at the sewer plant. Installed new signs on Fulmer Road. They prepped Riverside Road for paving, and they patched holes on several roads, which is the pictures that I added to the board.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
I guess this is a public works question, or is there another concert this weekend? And I guess, are they gonna close Floyd Park for that?
That's
Or
coming
might-
later in the agenda.
Okay,
That's,
Yes.
got it.
we'll get to that later.
Perfect.
All right. Township Board and Commission reports. Environmental Advisory Council.
So I had the chair reach out to me today. They didn't have anyone present. They wanted to know, they did not post an agenda, so they did not have a formal meeting and took no action for the month of August.
Okay. Planning Commission.
I'm covering for Greg tonight, he's answered the aspects. So, the Planning Commission met on August the 17th. We were tasked with 2 significant agenda items, the first of which was a review for the conditional use hearing in advance of the conditional use hearing for the Sachs and Son proposal to build a structure within the steep slope conservation area of our township. And we reviewed that based on a letter that the township engineer had generated for us, and that review was led by the applicant's engineer. The Township Planning Commission had a very healthy discussion. It was actually very good because we had a lot of chance to interact with Matt Sachs and his engineer about the scope of the project, but specifically those things that were included in the conditional use hearing, or would be included in the conditional use hearing. We expressed a concern about past conditional use hearings, items that had not been addressed yet by the township, but we formalized a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors at the end of our discussions that supported the township engineer's recommendations from her review letter and supported that. And we also added that measures that would pertain to the architectural characteristics of the shed ought to be considered as important to the board's consideration about that application. And also there is a tree that's present on the property. Well, actually it's not on the property, but adjoining the property that may be impacted by the project that's being proposed, that we supported having some kind of considerations about either replacing it or adjusting the construction that was necessary at that site to not pose a hazard to its well-being. And then finally, we have one other recommendation there. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, and that we recommended at that point in time that erosion control planning under section 170, 125 be deferred until the land development process is obviously a project that will involve many facets beyond the conditional use hearing, and we felt that that was an appropriate action to take. The other significant item that we addressed that night was the approval of the omnibus zoning amendment part 2. It's been a long time in getting to that point where we made a recommendation to have that go forward to final adoption by the township. Actually, I grew up with that amendment, so it's a long time coming. So we were pleased to have that recommended for adoption. That concluded their evening's discussions and actions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? No? Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry, Warren Jacobs?
Warren Jacobs, Fulham Road. I haven't actually seen the plan itself. Where is that tree in question located?
It's on the property line. The property line is the old access road that goes back to Andy Says. It's a maple tree apparently.
Is it the first tree on the way in on the right on the Annie Says driveway?
I don't know. I think it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, that tree is dead except for a low branch. And all the leaves that you see on that tree are poison ivy. And it's a Norway maple, and a Norway maple is on the list of trees that on a development project need to be removed.
Well,
So, I don't understand why we would be going to a great extent to preserve that tree.
well, that's good information. I did not go out and inspect the tree. It was noted as being present. And I think the agreement in principle was that if it was to be jeopardized, that some action would be taken to try to minimize the impact of construction, or in the event that it was unavoidable to damage it beyond its ability to survive, that a tree would be placed somewhere else on the adjoining property to replace it. So I don't think anything was signed off, but I think that was the assumption of all the parties.
That's one of the reasons we need a township arborist.
There you go. I think that's an opportunity for you.
Thank you, and thank you for that edification, Warren. Very helpful. All right, Open Space Committee? Do we have anyone on
The
Zoom?
meeting was canceled. They didn't have a,
Oh.
another meeting for August.
Okay. All right. Park and Recreation Board?
You also have a hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this about, go ahead. Guest?
Whoever raised their
Hey.
hand.
Good evening, this is Brian Hill from 11 Ziegler Hill Road. Two questions. One, Mr. Smith, could you answer the question as to your expertise with regards to tree knowledge? And also, number two question, Warren, could you also express your experience with tree knowledge?
Thank you, Brian.
Brian, these are volunteers. You can't be questioning them as part of the public comment. If you have a comment to make, you can certainly make a comment, but you can't be questioning members of the audience.
So as to my comment, I think Mr. Jacobs has the expertise as a tree expert. I don't believe Mr. Smith has any expertise in tree knowledge or maintenance. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, go ahead.
Good evening. We had our best attended concert to end out our concert season this year on August 31st. Mighty Manatees and the Waffle Cabin were a big hit. We went to overflow parking, and we certainly are grateful and thankful to the fire and police for doing a skillful job of managing overflow parking and putting cars where we didn't know we had places to put cars, so that was helpful. We were also short on experienced members for setup and tear down and for an event management. And some of our new members, Katie, Mary, and Becky, all stepped in with Greg to help with those deals. And we also thank the Public Works team who really went above and beyond in support of setup and tear down for us as we were short on manpower. Our next event is Movie on the Mountain. I was able to obtain sponsorship again from Victory Bank for the total amount of that event, so it will cost us nothing. We are going to get reimbursed for our popcorn this year. The movie is Luca, and it will be at Springmount on Saturday, September 16th. Rain date is September 23rd, starting at 7 o'clock. This is a joint venture between Upper and Lower Frederick and Upper Southford Townships. So it's a 3-township event, cooperative event between all of our volunteers. We will also have Brewster's Ice Cream and free face painting. This is a drive-in event, so it's a good thing to bring some food and do tailgating or picnicking with the family. Fall Fest will be October 7th at Floyd Park, starting noon to 3 o'clock. We are also supporting the police department on the Trunk or Treat again this year on Sunday, October 22nd. We are still planning, I thank Carol for her work on Floyd Park, keeping that moving, thank you. And also on the Coble development of the costing. We are still planning a tentative public meeting late October to review that project with the public and get input on those planned changes to Coble Park. And our next meeting will be next Monday. And I believe that's it. Any questions or comments?
Is your meeting going to be here or at a park?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks to all the hardworking people. I know it took a village to put that concert on, but it was a huge success, and I'm sure you're going to get big crowds from here on in. The word has gotten out. All right, brings us to our business section. First item, zoning amendment, advertisement authorization of the omnibus ordinance, part 2.
So I'm just looking for a vote to authorize my office to advertise the zoning amendment as presented to planning commissions. The Township Planning Commission found 2 typos which have been corrected. Other than that, is good to go. You'll be advertised for your first meeting in October. I will not be in attendance. I'm on vacation for the next meeting in September. Colby will be here. So that's why I'm advertising it for the October meeting.
Okay. So we just need a vote to authorize advertise, and how many times is it advertised?
It's advertised twice, once
Okay.
a week for 2 weeks.
Okay, so to advertise the omnibus ordinance, part 2. Do I have a motion?
Dan Orff will make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Yiser will make the second.
So Supervisor Orff made the motion, and Supervisor Yiser made the second to authorize advertising of the omnibus zoning ordinance, part 2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
this is for October 3rd, right? First Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it October?
That's what it's showing here.
Okay.
October 3rd is the first Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Next item is dormant, unused EDU policy draft discussion.
Okay, so as the board may recall, at its last meeting, I presented the policy, really to just get that to the board at the time. At that meeting, the board had chose to put this on this agenda or to allow Peter to make comments, since he will not be at our work session. So, kind of feeling you guys out how deep you want to go into the policy for tonight. comments or kind of start knocking this out? I don't know what the board's feelings are as far as that goes.
So just for the public, we've had some situations in this township that we don't have a policy to cover. For example, we have folks who purchased EDUs at the time when our old sewage plant could not take any additional capacity. Some of those people aren't using, they don't want to keep paying, and we have some variations of that theme. So we're looking to create a policy that will cover this unused and dormant EDUs, so everybody is treated the same and we have some consistency. Would the board like to start this discussion, or today, or delay it?
Sure, I'm happy
Okay.
to talk about it.
Okay.
I think we are more than closer to the 10,000 foot level, right? In terms of what we want to understand.
Yeah, there's still some deep diving I need to do, kind of more in the weeds work.
Right.
Because I know you guys have requested as much information as I get my hands on. I definitely have hit on some things, but there's still some work to do in the back office.
I mean, the big things are like, okay, how many residents is this really impacting? How many people are out there that are in this situation? If we adopt these policies, and so one of the policies is that somebody might have an EDU they're not using, and they may have to pay some amount of money to keep that EDU. You know, what would that look like if all those people switched over to that policy and stopped paying the quarterly rent and said, okay, I'm just going to pay whatever that amount is a year? What does that look like financially to the system? I would like to know those types of things kind of as best we can up front before we start diving into the detailed numbers.
No, and I agree, because that's obviously, you know, we're kind of in, and there's things we're aware of. I think there's going to be a handful that, you know, I expect to stumble on. So there's things we're aware of, and there's things kind of hiding in that, you know, in the weeds. It's going to take some time getting into some of the property files and stuff, trying to really on the EDUs.
Could take Terry.
The floor bus will share.
Get the alcohol wipes.
So
it's partially on.
So, as far as, you know, I think one of the things is how many EDUs maybe were purchased from back in the day that you're not aware of, that predates QuickBooks.
Right. Right, and there are special circumstances where people were given EDUs in exchange for easements. Those are agreements, as far as I'm concerned, are set in stone, shouldn't be renegotiated. But there's all kinds of things that we need to understand, the variety of situations we have out there. There are situations where people bought EDUs thinking that a sewer line might come, but it never did. It's not their fault it didn't come. You know, it's trying to be fair about everybody's situation, I guess. So I don't know how deep of a dive we can do, not knowing, again, the extent of who's affected and how they're affected.
So what I do have is kind of from like 2015 as far as what, you know, kind of how the boards handled some of the different situations as it was presented to them. So in September 2015, for instance, Mr. Gottschall was asked about sewer billing for his property at 6 Big Road. He requested a reduction of 2 EDUs relating it as more accurate of his sewer discharge. The supervisors will discuss and request and advise him of their decision. After some discussion, the supervisors let I apologize. The supervisors directed Ms. Kordarski to inform Mr. God that they will not be taking any change or making any changes to the EDU schedule or units billed at a time. So that's how they handled that request. There was a request of reduction in sewer dues from Bernard and Lisa Kokersberger. I did not find any further things on for their request that actually hit the minutes.
There was a buyback agreement done in 2019. This was for Cemetery Road or Lane request. That was, that refund was for $1,500. This was one of the ones that I think came kind of out of nowhere that the township was probably not aware of at the time, and probably purchased. I don't know when the tapping fee was $1,500, but I'm guessing probably when the sewer plant was initially built. So that's part of one of the deep dives I want to do is almost probably take, say, Cemetery Lane properties and hit the property files and see if there's any other residents that hopped on that, because it was my understanding that there was an assumption that public sewer would run up Cemetery Lane. Because I don't know, I wouldn't know any other reason why someone would purchase an EDU for a road that doesn't have public sewer.
Unless they just wanted to bank it because we had a shortage of EDUs at the time.
Yes. There was the art studio, asked for a reduction of EDUs from 9 to 5 for engagers in art studio. That was granted. So basically, so they just received a reduction of EDUs. There was an EDU request last year for what became a vacant property where the demo had occurred. That was a situation, as my understanding, where the property owners were going to rescind. Then they had kind of a change of heart. And at the time, the board agreed to review the ordinance and consider modifications because the resident property owner was requesting to hold on to that EDU, just not pay for it. That's a commercial EDUs update that year-to-date last year. And then what kind of pushed this on to me, trying to make this current, is we had a request at the beginning of the year for original EDUs that were put out of use through redevelopment for Two Big Road and 1206 North Gravel Pike property. And in that request, they asked if the township purchased the EDUs back. They allow us to stop paying quarterly fees on inactive EDUs, but hold them for future development, or turn them back over to the township and not be responsible for the current EDU bill. So those are some of the scenarios that the board has faced since 2015. You know, as you stated, we are aware, and I got concrete, that there were EDUs purchased back in the day that have never been paid on, and we have scenarios where there's EDUs that have been freed up, where they're continuing to make the quarterly payments, or we have a situation where a house was demoed, where that residence continued to pay the EDU. We also, as was noted, there were EDUs, or it's my understanding there were EDUs used as negotiation for an easement, much like we did with the sewer extension, but this was for Delphi Pump Station. So that's part of when I crafted the policy. I was trying to hit all those different buckets so that would be, you know, that based on what the township and the boards of the past and current have experienced, that hopefully we can address all those situations and then decide how we want to move from now into the future. As far as the policy goes, I can say I probably reviewed 10 to 15 different policies from different municipalities within the state. There's not really a policy as we're trying to craft here, so it take bits and pieces, and that's going to be part of the process. And obviously part of the review that Peter will do is what, you know, as far as the legal part of it, and then, you know, I think ultimately to give the board options as far as how they want to handle sewer reservation, whether you want to put a time limit on, you know, these outstanding EDUs that's never been used. That seems to be the norm in most of the current policies, is that when someone buys it, you know, pays the tapping fee, that they put a time limit on it, so it's not hanging out there forever. It does seem like sewer reservation fees come in, you know, more for plants or sewer plants that may be closer to capacity, but I think, it's really putting somebody in line, so where they get in line, but they've not paid the tapping fee, because, and some of the scenarios on that where I read is, you get in line, you could potentially impact someone who has to connect because you're hogging up the capacity. I know that's not the case with the plant currently. But there's many, there's different scenarios that I try to propose to the board within this policy based on the knowledge that we had at hand and, potentially what we may kind of unearth that might come out of, that maybe hasn't been discussed previously in many years.
So to summarize, there's what I heard from discussions before. There's 4 scenarios. If we come up with more, we can add them. So to summarize, someone purchased them with no infrastructure. Cemetery lien would be an example. Purchased to hold or given for an easement to hold, and it is possible to hook in, but they are not physically connected.
And have never paid.
That'll be the second
Sorry.
piece. Had a building, no longer have a building, whether they tore it down, burnt down, whatever the case is, there was a connection in the road, or a reduce in use. I think for each of the categories, then we need to go back, figure out how many exact address, exact EDUs, and then how many are paying now, before we can come up with a financial, what does this look like if we just tell everyone, don't worry about paying, or here's your reduced rate. And then for the ones like you mentioned that have it and are not holding, then what with the policy? How do we let them know, wake up, it's time to pay something, or in so many years it goes away?
Correct.
Okay. So I think without having the actual details in those 4 categories, and if there's another category, we can add it. We won't have enough information to continue the discussion, because if it's going to put us in the red because of one policy, well, might as well stay where we're at.
Yeah, I think too, if we're talking about possibly reviewing circumstances, I mean, the other elephant in the room is there's probably uses out there that should have more reviews. And we need to look at that.
I know the commercial, and that's obviously happening on the other commercial property. Well, I guess potentially it could be an apartment building also.
Or a place that came into being under one use and now they've
changed the use.
They've added a use.
Or added use, yep.
Right? Because they decided to diversify what their offerings are within that retail space, and they've added the use.
Yeah. I mean, just for me, I think the important thing is fairness. Is people are being treated differently, and over the years, different administrations have kind of winged it, and we have all these situations where some people maybe are doing great because they're getting a benefit perhaps and not paying anything, and other people are getting no benefit and paying. So, we really need to be treating everybody fairly and have a policy that people can look at and see that we have thought this through, and just maybe fix some of the things that have happened in the past. I'm not really ready, for me personally, I think we need some more information before we can really get into this. Dan, Perry?
Yeah, I echo what Terry Bird said. I think we need an enumeration of the various types of things, and I think Terry's first stab at categorization is a good strategy to take. So I think we need definitely more information before we can do it.
I agree with Terry. There's a lot of stuff here that has to be thought about and looked at in the sewer and on these connections. And it was Herb Jewson is the one that was in 19 that we gave him the money back. Because the $1,500 was, that's what they paid for, that's what they got back, which was fine. You got $7,400. So really we were ahead of the game no matter how you looked at it. That's why that was handed back to them.
Yeah, that was my understanding. I
And
mean,
they
that's
had-
also, it was pointed out in a few of the meetings where we know our data in the back office is not complete, so.
And they had the paperwork to prove that they bought it,
Yeah.
so.
And that's obviously the challenge that's kind of ahead, trying to gather this, gather the information. Do I believe this is, probably the hardest would be the outstanding, like where people purchased EDUs prior to where kind of QuickBooks started. That would maybe be the tougher one to find as far as anything that was kind of redeveloped, if we pulled demo permit, like there's a way to do it for land use changes and stuff like that, where I can kind of focus in corridors, and then the individual homes where, if something was demoed, kind of like we did, like River, not that we were paying for 40 Riverside, but that would have been a situation that was an EDU at one point. The house has been demoed, and so, how's that, so that's, I'm expecting to not be as difficult understanding where I'm trying to focus on. It's really kind of the outstanding tapping fees, because obviously the juices like that kind of I think that came out of nowhere for you guys. And
Well, he had passed away. She lived in New York with a daughter, and she called down to see if she could get it back out. And there was a time that the sewer was going to go up cemetery.
I mean, right now I have a situation where I know there's at least six EDUs that were purchased back in 2008 that I know are not in use. That I can say with certainty, and so that's also part of the, with what we have, with what we show in, that we've received through QuickBooks. Like I said, that's where I'm nervous prior to that, because I haven't stumbled on anything on a shared drive or any file that's, kind of predates kind of 2005, 2004 and 5, which I think is what you guys were running into before.
Okay, so is there consensus on the board that we will revisit this when we have some more details? And will that be by our work session, or maybe?
That would be my hope, but like I said,
Okay.
we put this on for Peter's, more for Peter's sake.
Okay.
If he had comments, as opposed to, that's why I was kind of gauging, how much you wanted to go into policy, knowing that, there's other information you guys need to have at your disposal.
Okay, so go ahead.
I didn't want to go into great detail, but there were a couple of things here where I just didn't understand what was trying to get across. So, I mean, I guess I can ask you that, I'll just ask you that one-on-one. As opposed to chewing up meeting time.
Yeah, I can say putting the policy together was very enlightening. I certainly felt much better at the end than I did. And what I found was I don't think it's as complicated as it may have appeared before I got something on paper. And I think as I was kind of crafting and kind of reorder, kind of like Terry pointed out, there's these scenarios we're trying to address, and then hopefully any other scenario that might be out there, and that way we've got a rock solid policy that, we can use for the future, and if it would kind of force a board if they would want to change it, they have to change the policy. So that's kind of why I can't go to my policy cake, because.
Well, I mean, is it reasonable, I guess this is a solicitor question, to also have something in there that, a procedure, if you will, for dealing with situations that may not be one of the situations we've enumerated? Is that something you would typically include?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we will look forward to seeing this perhaps at our work session, but at a future date. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. So, I don't know what happened with the house over on, was it Mary Jane, the one that got knocked down last year?
Mm-hmm.
That one probably had a lateral. So whether or not that person's still paying, but, the thing is that when a demo permit's issued, on the date that the demo permit's issued, then whoever's doing our sewer billing, there should be a way to take it from the demo permit to the sewer billing and say, okay, stop it there. And then, as Jason was saying, whether it has a time extension to it, or whether they're paying a percentage of, like right now, the $800 yearly rental, if there was a percentage for that or whatever, then you would know that, so.
Yep, and that's exactly what we're looking for, and then like
Right.
the house on Gravel Pike that had the fire, that too.
Right.
Okay. So sewer extension project, the Dolly change order? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that would be me.
Oh, okay. That's what you're pointing at.
So, change order number 4 is presented for your consideration, and it is a simple extension of time. So the pump station work was delayed when PICO kept pushing back the power connection. Power was finally connected by PICO on August 16th. And the pump and generator startup teams, well, they kept getting rescheduled, waiting for PICO. So they are currently scheduled for next week, unless they should become available sooner. So the change order that's before you extends the date of completion to September 22nd, 2023. There's no change in costs, it's just an extension to give them the time to finish the pump station and connections and other work on this project.
Okay, any questions from the board? No? All right, so the motion would be, I move to accept change order number 4 for Dolly Construction Corporation, as stated in value engineering memo, for the Lower Frederick Sewer Extension Project, and that would extend it to September 22nd, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Chuck Geiser will make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So we had Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Great. Next item is authorization for repair of wheel loader.
So this is a request from your roadmaster. The wheel loader is in need of a major repair on the front axle. The equipment is primarily used during the winter months, which will be upon us soon. Tommy has received 2 quotes. Since we are under the 12,200 bidding threshold, we're not required to have 3 or more telephonic/written quotations. He was able to get 2. Being under the threshold, the board can choose to go with whatever quote they would like to, minus the tax. Where we've exempt, the difference between the code quotes is $676.03. So what the board will be reviewing is a quote from Troy's Truck and Equipment dated 8/23 in the amount of $9,096.69, and a quote from Saks Garage LLC dated 8/16/23 in the amount of $9,772.72.
So the lower quote is from Troy's Truck and Equipment. Okay.
And Tommy he didn't say there was a preference or, as far as that goes, so.
So since it's under the bid amount, do we have to vote on that or just have consensus?
It should be a vote,
Okay,
but yes.
all right,
For these larger type of things, generally I like the board to kind of
Okay.
less formally.
all right. So I guess the first thing is, does the board want to go with the lower quote?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, so do I have a motion then to approve the quote by Troy's Truck and Equipment to repair the wheel loader? It's in the amount of $9,642.49.
That would be $9,090, we have to get the sales tax out off the quote. It would be
Oh, $9,096.69. Okay, so, sorry. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second.
Okay, so Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Yiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Great. So it looks like item E has been crossed off, is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, does that mean it's not ready yet?
No, we had previously got that approved several months ago.
Oh, good,
Just
okay,
that
good,
I was
okay.
Putting my cover letters together, so that was
All
back in
right.
March, which seems like 2-3 years ago for me right now.
Yeah, that was a while ago, okay. All right. So then the next item is the Foy Park, I guess it's parking request.
So we received a request from the Extreme Folk Fest 2023 folks. This is a request from Extreme Folk Scene. They state on the website they're a nonprofit 501c3. I did provide the board some different pages as far as what the event consists of. They are requesting use of Boyd Park for parking since Spring Mountain is not allowing parking in their lower lot that weekend. I asked for a formal request from them, which they gave, and we thought it would be a good idea to discuss this publicly after our last week's event at Kevin Craft location. And whatever the board would choose, this would be merely a consensus.
So I'm just curious about, I mean, what is the parking availability at Cabin Craft? They don't have sufficient parking there?
Since we haven't gone through the proper permit procedure with them, we're not sure what capacity they have. It appears their camping use predates our zoning. There's nothing showing that what the current use has been. So when it predates zoning, it's considered non-conforming. That's allowable. So as far as their actual parking capacity, we have no real mechanism to determine that. Much like septic sewer facilities, they do have public sewer, I think, to the building down there, I believe. We don't have that information.
But I'm assuming the reason they're asking for additional parking is because they don't have it. Is that the case?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I think the reason that they don't have access to the Spring Mountain facility, the parking there, is the same reason we took the steps to secure Boyd Park during the prior event, right?
I'm basing it off of what was in their email they sent. I will say, 2 weekends ago, we closed Boyd Park. I did have contact, Tommy and I had contact with Upper Salford. They did close the lower lot. One of the things that I did confirm, that is private property, that is not a trailhead. Right. So I think it's a misnomer for any, it's not public property. The only easement they have through there is the trail. So that is Spring Mountain's choice. So to your point, Dan, it could be that, or their Halloween event. I anticipate them being in line, kind of in line with how we handled the 2 weekends ago.
It's just disconcerting because since they don't get permits, there's no way to know whether they have proper, procedures and processes in place as to how they distribute the cars in their own area and how they would provide access for emergency.
We do have concerns with emergency services having the ability to get into the property, and if something of that would arise. In talking to Sergeant Cass, who, where our police department was on during the weekend, we took the approach that we would only deal with things happening off the property, that we were not, and so I know in conversations with the solicitor and our code enforcement officer, I believe we will be proposing to the board to look at our events section of our ordinance and potentially have our planning commission start kind of looking at something that has a little more teeth, since our initial issue was that it's difficult, you can't cite someone who hasn't actually committed a violation, right, just because they're advertising it. Which, full disclosure, there's another event coming up this weekend that it's really kind of a timing situation for us. And we would be taking the same approach that we took 2 weekends ago. Okay, so that's kind of, that seemed to work, as Sergeant Cass can confirm. I think we were fortunate, nothing happened off the property for the last event. I think it was good, we were prepared for it, and everybody was kind of on board, which I think helped. But as they go from event to event, and without being properly permitted, we have potential. I think the issues are a matter of not if it's just planning, because something's gonna happen.
And my concern is, this is whether it's a nonprofit or not a nonprofit, it's a private organization, and what kind of guarantee do we have where they're going to park, how they're going to park, how many are going to park, what else will happen if we have them parking there? There's a private residence back there as well. How are they going to get across the street? I mean, there's a lot of, do they have insurance? If they do damage, are we going to be able to fix it? It's a lot of unknown questions. Are they going to police the parking area? Are they going to help people park? We
Well,
don't
and I
know.
know in the past, Foy Park had gotten, I think before we started closing it for, when there was an event, I think it got, as I'm told, got pretty beat up.
Yeah.
With people just parking kind of, I believe there was tents left and kind of, we're not really prepared for that. Nor do we want to, do we want our public park to be subjected to, people kind of doing whatever they want to do with it. So that was the main reason of closing, along with helping our police department not have to worry about dealing with people inside the park area. So that was kind of the reasoning, just closing it all together, which is, I think, something the township's done previous, so.
So, 2 words, request denied. Done. Thank you.
Anything else from the rest of the board?
Yeah, I mean, the request specifically is for parking on the basketball court and the grass, and we don't control the weather or the people or the cars, so I don't see making their problem our problem a good idea, so I don't think we should talk about it anymore.
Yeah. No talking about it anymore. I agree with the last 2 supervisors.
Yep.
Fine with me.
Okay, so I'm hearing consensus from the board that there is no interest in allowing this. I'm assuming we don't need to vote since we have consensus.
Correct, and I just want to bring up, since we're on this subject, I'm going to be talking to the staff about citing these folks because they're not pulling permits. The staff have been talking to them numerous times, and we sent letters to them saying, hey, you got to come in, you got to talk to us, you got to pull permits, and we're being ignored. So unless the board, once again, I'm not looking for a vote because I don't think at this level you should be directing enforcement actions. But unless the board has an issue, I will be recommending to staff to look into starting an enforcement action against not only Cabin Craft, but also the other concert we had, which I believe has occurred multiple years in a row on Zieglerville Road, which seems to be a much larger event, actually.
Actually, it's, I think it's Yerger. Is it Yerger? The one that, it's not Zieglerville. The one up on there where Yerger and,
Talking about Gerloff Road?
yeah, Gerloff, yeah, sorry.
No, this event, and actually this was a byproduct of our police department being on that night, and I can certainly let Sergeant Cass speak more to it because he was present.
Okay.
This occurred during the same weekend that we had our police department on, and they had responded to complaints, so I guess.
For the incident, for the party, concert, whatever, we're gonna classify it on Zieglerville Road. We received multiple complaints from residents in the town, and many of them did not want to, they wanted to remain anonymous, but multiple people made it known that they did not like what was going on. During our patrol activities, they did have from what I could see from Zieglerville Road, a mini stage set up, a live band playing, and I did provide the township manager with some photos of the amount of cars and the party that was going on. So, just to clarify what was going on in Zieglerville, it's just not something that we saw. We actually received complaints from the other residents.
I appreciate the clarification, and I apologize. I was thinking of I think it was last year they had, as Chuck correctly pointed out, the one I was thinking about was the one on
Gerloff Road, last summer.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the one you're referring to.
Yeah, so both of them pose the same type of problem.
Pam did have her hand up.
Okay, is anything else from the board on this? No? Okay, go ahead, Pam.
I'm good. I appreciate the board's consideration. We don't want that park trashed. When we hold our events, we're contracting with our bands and our have there. We always make arrangements. We've worked around cabin crafters a couple times the last 2 years for their events so that we can get the parking at Spring Mill and get Rick's permission to do that so that we have parking available. If we don't have adequate parking in Floyd Park, it's not a facility that we want to start using as a parking lot.
Yeah. Okay, we're all in agreement. And just a quick question, again, I don't want to prolong this discussion, but in terms of permits, is the requirement for the host of the event to get the permit? Because Cabin Craft is the host, but this music company is coming.
One or the other needs to get it, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. All right. So the next item,
And as far as our public gathering ordinance goes, like, we have no idea how many people are coming to Cabin Cap this weekend. That's why we need to have a conversation. They well might be under what our ordinance requires. But they need to come in and explain this to us and talk to us, and so we know what's going on, and they're not even willing to do that.
okay. Great, thank you. All right, next item is a detour request from PennDOT.
Okay, so on 8/21, I received an email request for the use of Spring Mount Road as part of a PennDOT detour. The project is a removal and replacement of 2 existing stormwater runs crossing Route 29, the areas between Spring Mount Road and Schwenksville. I asked when we can expect this project to start and how long. Mr. Gabler from Highway Materials said it would be 1 to 2 months away, so that would have been 2 weeks ago. And last around a week. The work would be completed during night hours. This would be similar to when Little Road was paved, which I know was nighttime paving. And I know when Route 29 got paved, that was during the night. So my expectation is you're not going to have a lot of overnight traffic necessarily headed down Spring Mount Road. And as you can see from the detour, which
No.
Yeah.
Obviously, the copy was like a photocopy of which, I'm stuck. So they would be providing the signage, they would be providing, much like we're, when PennDOT needs to utilize a township road, the board generally has to approve a detour plan. I know we did the Yerger Road kind of on the fly, and I think as Chuck pointed out, that project was slated for 2025, so I couldn't find this project on their list. So it seems, and since this has culverts related to it, much like Yerger Road project did, so I don't know if they're catching up. So this would need to be a formal approval by the board to allow the use of Spring Mount Road for the overnight hours, for the dates to be determined. And much like we did for your road, we would certainly post Facebook. There's going to be adequate detour signage like they did with, so there'll be notice given for the nighttime hours.
Okay, so this will happen probably somewhere between the end of September and the end of October.
Yes, because I think, I think it's October timeframe, or I guess it depends how warm it is when you can't get pavement anymore. I know it's temperature driven, so I think they're gonna be kind of pushed to, even though they'll probably only be patching. I don't know if this is a patch. I think this is just a culvert replacement. I don't know that paving is involved.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? No? Okay, would someone like to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to accept the detour route from Highways Materials Incorporated for a PennDOT project and further authorize the township manager to contact Highway Materials Inc. to state such.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Yarza made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. And the last item is a resolution for Great Eastern Management.
Okay, so this is a resolution updates the resolution to allow me to do certificates of deposits for the township with Great Eastern Management. We have done this 2 other times. I talked to David Paul a few weeks ago, and we will be looking to see if we can get better rates for a couple of our long-term CDs. They were named as a depository for the township during the 2023 reorg. So this is a corporate resolution that I've presented to the board via what he sent me that would allow us to do that. So we do have some CDs with these guys. We also do have a couple with Victory, but this will allow me to do that.
And what would be the resolution number?
This would be 2023 R-19.
19, okay. So the motion would be, I move to adopt Resolution 2023 R-19, updating the corporate resolution with Great Eastern Management to allow Great Eastern Management to order certificate of deposits on behalf of the township. I'll go ahead and make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Orff made the second. All those in favor signify.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I had some questions about it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
So I understand this is pretty much a boilerplate. We do it. Do you know what we pay them to get CDs for us?
So I actually haven't determined that. I've talked to them a couple of times. I believe Cindy brought these guys in. So I can say I've not seen a breakdown of what their fee is. I know there is a fee for doing what they're doing, or at least my experience was only through Pliget. So I've not yet worked with an outside agency. I would say before I do anything, that would be part of the discussion pretty much since then, because none of our CDs are coming due. I think the first one, we may have one coming due in 2024 or 20, so this was one of those things I kind of had time with, but knowing what CD rate, I think CD rates are like at 5% right now, and I think we have a long-term one at like 1 that we got during the pandemic. So that's kind of what in conversations with them, but we did discuss, we'll be doing them kind of one at a time, not kind of a collective, so.
Okay. So that was my comment was I recall these discussions when rates are very low, and it was annoying tracking 1.5%. So if we're paying, look at it, see what we're paying.
Yeah.
Victory right now, 6 months, 5%. I mean, we have large balances that we could be throwing some decent chunks of money, if allowed, at these 5% CDs for 6 months.
So that's part of where I'm getting to a point where I can focus on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I won't discount Victory. But I will say when the bank accounts are where they're at, and we can do better, that's always been my rule of thumb. It's just been a little while since CDs were worth, their weight. I think it's just one of those things, because I did the same thing at Springfield with low rates, but it was just trying to do something, because the savings rates weren't, the savings account rates weren't even that high. I will say we are, as you can tell from the budget, we're killing it with interest right now. It's kind of back where it was, a few years back, but.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get an update on when that happens and what the
Yeah,
details
and I'll
are.
certainly be in discussions with Terry, because I know he kind of oversees the financial, the budget stuff for the.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? You okay? All right. So let's try again. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, is there anything else? That brings us to the end of the business portion. Now we're in public comment. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Iberville Road. So probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I brought up that the state roads are no truck roads now. So Safford Station, Colonial, and several other ones, they just put the signs up. I know Peter had mentioned before that we would have to do something if we were going to do, we would have to update our code or whatever to make them no truck roads. Years ago, when Mr. Tobias was here, and Fedorchek and Mark, I sent over, I think it's Act 31, that the state basically said, you know, any township can go ahead and make these roads no truck roads without having to do traffic studies and whatnot. So the one thing that kind of alarms me, and maybe the board's not aware of this, but Highway Materials has been digging all over the place on these PennDOT roads, and they've been sending the loaded trucks down Main Road. And they've been dumping in the Limerick site on Main Road at the intersection, right before the intersection of Game Farm Road there. So there's been a lot of truck traffic going up and down Main Road, which obviously is not good for you know, our roads, plus the people that are there. It's a narrow road. So I hate to see this overnight situation and have them, you know, going up Main Road and dumping continuously on Main Road. So just to bring that to your attention, but I think, you know, there's several roads in our township that we should be looking at, you know, as to definitely making that no truck road. Center Road, Cemetery. Cemetery, I believe, already is, but Main Road. So just to bring that up to you.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom?
Yeah, no, there's no hands up.
Okay, so last call for public comment. I'm going to move to supervisor comment. You have anything, Brian? Okay, all right. Supervisor comment? Nope. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Recording stopped.